Welcome to Season 2 of Let's Break Up, Toxic Workplace Stories. Join hosts Nicola and Gina as they tackle workplace toxicity head-on. Real-life stories, well-being, and standing against toxicity await you. Let's break up with toxic workplaces and create a revolution of positivity together.
As a disclaimer, Nicola and Gina's opinions are solely their own and don't represent professional advice. It's just their perspective, so form your own conclusions. Heads up, this podcast may contain adult content and explicit language. So let's dive in and break up with toxic workplaces.
So for today's chat, I've actually got a pre-game. I've done some research, and I have prepared for us a pre-game chat.
Okay.
Okay. Are you ready?
Did you chat CPG this?
No, I didn't.
I'm actually shocked because that's like your new favorite thing.
Oh my God, it is my new favorite thing. Honestly, it just does such easy things for me.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure it does.
I was struggling, just, great advert. If Chat CPG wants to sponsor us, that would be nice.
That would be cool.
That would be cool. So I needed an Excel spreadsheet formula. And I used my smart thinking brain, and it just wasn't coming together. And I asked,
I'm terrible at Excel, terrible at
Excel.
Terrible.
And I was like, I'm really struggling with this formula. So I asked ChatCPG, and it gave me the formula exactly how I wanted it.
Perfect.
And I was like,
it is useful.
I was like, but it's so long. No wonder I didn't have it in my brain. Anyway,
yeah.
So today's pre-game chat, before we get on our very last episode that we haven't vetted, so we have no idea where we're getting today.
Ooh, I know this is a little bit of like a dicey
we're like
dicey
on the
time
edge
for us.
We're on the edge. Okay, so toxic workplace behaviors that damage mental health. There are a total of 7 that this person has raised, and I'm curious. Yeah, I'm curious just to go through them and see how we feel about them before we get Linda on a little bit later. So our 7 toxic personality traits that damage mental health.
Yes, let's hear them. I'm interested.
Okay.
Also, side note, based on the books that I just got, I think I'm gonna read Dr. Amber's first, because I just flipped through it and it seems like really interesting.
Love this already. I'm so excited.
I know. Okay. All right. What are the 7 traits?
What are the 7 traits of toxic workplace? All right. I'm going to list all 7, and then we can go back and chat about any ones that we think are critical to talk about. So we've got micromanagement, incivility, blame, lack of empathy, self-entitlement, lack of support, and unrealistic expectations.
Okay, so just off the top, what are the ones that jump out at you? Because I wrote down the 3 or 4 that immediately spoke to me.
I feel like we're both on board with micromanagement. And the description here was micromanagement reduces autonomy and confidence and can lead to a culture of distrust. Incivility, staff are ignored, undermined, and belittled. Blame. There is a culture where individuals are blamed for mistakes. Lack of empathy. Negative judgment is made when people share or talk about struggles.
Okay.
Self-entitlement. Staff are not treated equally. Leaders find themselves superior to others. Lack of support. There is a lack of support and care for those who need help. And unrealistic expectations. Staff are expected to work long hours and available 24/7.
Okay. So which are your top 3?
Micromanagement. I would say unrealistic expectations and blame.
Okay. So
What are
mine
yours?
were micromanagement, lack of support, / self-entitlement, and unrealistic expectations.
Ooh, okay. I'm on board. I'm on board with your decision.
I'm on board with yours too. So talking about micromanagement, I mean, we've talked about that so much. It really does remove all autonomy, and it makes you feel like
Shit.
it makes you feel like shit, because it's like, why are you checking on my every little thing I'm doing?
And then also, but it comes with that level of blame or judgment if you're not doing what it is that you're supposed to be doing, right? Like you're trying to truck on and you've prioritized things in a way that makes sense to you with the experience that you have. And then you have someone who has less experience coming in to micromanage, kind of,
And
again,
also
an
what a
unrealistic
waste-
expectation.
Right. And also, like, what a waste of time.
Oh, what a waste of time.
Because I would be like
Micromanagement
in the
is worst.
middle of like writing a something to somebody that was more important than the question this person's asking, and I have to stop and respond to them. It's like it was not my bag, baby.
Your bag, baby.
For little Austin Powers.
Mm.
That ain't my bag, baby. Okay, so anyway,
I also
I feel like micromanagement is like number one offender, and then everything kind of trickles down from there.
I
or
agree
feeds into it.
because I think once you have a micromanager, you've got this like blame culture as well. And I think blame is the worst. Like I said you know what? The blame culture is so easy to fall into. Just this week, I had a really good example in the workplace where it wasn't a toxic bitch, just to be clear. I was bitching about a reporting structure that wasn't giving me information. Like I wasn't getting information from the report I was receiving. So I couldn't tell a confident story about what I was reading.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, I don't understand why this reporting is not giving me the details I need. I need to be able to say X, Y, and Z. And then the person asked me, they're like, oh, is this because so-and-so didn't do the reports correctly? I said, this has got nothing to do with a person. Like, just take that straight off the table right now. This is to do with data and information that we're getting in. And if
That's like, if it's like a science-based report, it's there. Where's the blame? You're just running numbers.
No
it's
you're just running numbers. And I'm like, it's got nothing to do with a person at all. Like, I'm not a person. Like, we can't blame people for this. This is just us not collecting the right information, and
we're
then
not running the right report, which you could, if that's the case, you just go back and rerun it with the right queries. Yeah,
exactly. So I was like, we just have to punch out what the right information is to tell the right story. But I noticed right in that moment, I was like, isn't it interesting how that blame culture just instantaneously we go to blame someone for a problem?
I think it's part of just like that fear that I think we as humans have. And it's like we have to kind of do a little extra work to kind of be like, no, I'm not going to be scared to tell the truth. And like so many times at where you and I met, I would be like, nope, that was wrong. I was wrong. You were right. Like, I don't mind fessing up to my mistakes. I have no problems with that. I've always been good at like personal self-assessment and situational humility. If I'm wrong, I don't mind.
Yeah, always.
But when I will
happily take it.
Yeah, but when I'm right and being told to do it the wrong way, or, whatever it may be, that bothers me.
What's the worst mistake you've ever made that you had to own up for? Like work-wise, not personal-wise. What's the worst mistake work-wise you've ever made? Well, other than the one the other day.
Which one? Oh, yeah, no, I made Nicola's referring to an accounting thing. I accidentally forgot to record something, but in the end, it's going to be fine. I talked to everyone who it affected and they understood. I mean, anyway, I think the worst thing I've ever done was, I think this story. I said something to a colleague. I was like, this client is fucking annoying. And somehow that email thread got forwarded to the client, and there was a lot of things going on. Like, why would they go all the way to the bottom of the thread? Like, I never go to the bottom of the thread of any email.
Oh my God, I go to
we've talked about it.
Yeah, I go to the bottom of the thread.
Oh my God. Okay. So somehow they got to the bottom of the thread and they noticed that somebody, because it was like from a Gmail account, said they're fucking annoying. I think that was probably the worst thing I ever did.
You want me to tell you my worst?
Yes, please.
No. Okay. So I'm going to give you like the high level summary version because it has a bit of context. I don't know if you've ever dealt with mercury contamination, like mercury issues. So mercury evaporates at room temperature. And in New Zealand, there was an accident where someone dropped a thermometer on the ground and it burst the mercury, but it was only about 1 milliliter of mercury, and they evacuated the school because it is toxic. The minute it evaporates, it's toxic. So about a day later, I get called in. Hi, Nicola. We've just found a container. We're not sure what's in it.
Can you come check it out?
Can you come have a look? And because I'm a hazardous goods handler, I was like, okay, yeah, cool. I get there and it's 2 kilograms, so like 4 pounds of mercury, just in a plastic like in an ice cream tub.
Was this at a thermometer manufacturing plant? Why did they have this?
It was a school, like it was a university.
Oh, so maybe for like experiments and stuff. Okay.
Like the mercury should not leave. So what had happened, we did a bit of deep dive in, and what had happened was the previous incumbent in my role had there had been an incident where they dropped industrial grade thermometers that have quite big bulbs of and he just scooped it up with his hands and put
his bare hands
and put it in this ice cream container.
But why?
So many questions I don't have answers to. Anyway, so now I'm in the situation and I'm like, okay, well, we need to call, hazmat, and we need to evacuate school, because we evacuated an entire school with 1 milliliter.
With one little tiny bit, yeah.
And like a drop, and now I've got 4 pounds of it. And there's like a evaporation watermark as well. And I was like, how much of this has evaporated? Like, how long has this been here? And I'd say that was my biggest mistake, is I essentially did everything I could to keep it out of the press and kind of sweep it under the rug.
So what would you have done differently?
Oh, I for sure would have evacuated that entire school if I could have.
And would you have been honest about it in the press? Yeah. I mean, what I learned is never put anything in writing that you don't want to be published. Like if you don't want it on the front page of the New York Times, don't write it. That's what I learned.
And this is true.
Like I can, like on off time hours, I can complain about a client or something. Like this client was probably being like very nitpicky about something very simple, but
never say it in an email.
Never write it down in black and white. You can say it, but and it's probably better to just be grateful that you have clients, See what it is. One of those is batteries. Hello.
Hi. Oh my goodness. Zoom.
Hello, Linda.
Hi,
How
Linda.
are you?
Hello. I'm doing great. How are you ladies doing?
Yeah, we're going. We're getting going.
Let's go. Gosh, I started the Zoom. It just was not loading. And I was like,
That happens sometimes. It's annoying.
Yeah.
Where are you calling us from?
San Diego, California.
We digress. So, Linda, how did you find us? What do you plan to talk to us about? Give us a little bit of a lowdown.
I don't remember how I found you. I have, somebody on my team that's out there finding, opportunities for me. So it was probably through them, because I do reach outs and they do reach outs and stuff.
Okay.
One of my favorite topics to talk about is breaking through fear. I broke through a fear every single day for a year in 2015, and I was 51 years old. So that's a really great topic, because we all have fear. Mm-hmm. I had 49 jobs in 36 years. So I've got lots of stories. I got stories for days about toxic workplaces.
Oh my God, Linda, that just made me laugh so hard.
It's true. And that's the worst part. It's true.
I'm curious to know right off the bat, though, churning through so many roles, were you the toxic person?
I know. And that was the question I started as I was filling out your form, because it reminded me specifically one story of a gentleman that was extremely toxic. And then as I was writing the story about him, I was asking myself that same question, like 49 jobs. Was I the toxic person? It's possible I was. was a very negative person for decades. I grew up in abuse. Like, we'll get into all that.
Love
Okay.
that. Okay,
So,
great.
I mean, I love that you're willing to own that, because I know, like, we talk about it all the time on the podcast, that we're someone's toxic person somewhere,
Yeah.
in someone's
Right.
story, we're the toxic person.
Oh, for
so,
sure. For sure.
yeah.
Yeah. I was probably toxic to the gentleman that I will be sharing about.
Oh,
Okay. So do you want to get into that story, or do you want to prelude
sure.
it with something else?
Oh, yeah, let's prelude it with that, because it is a toxic story,
All right.
It's a
So
really
take
great
it from the
place to
top.
start.
What industry were you in? What role did you have at this position? You don't have to name the actual company if you don't want to, or you can if you want to, whatever you want to do.
Yeah. I don't remember the name of it. With 49 jobs, it's hard to remember what the names of all the jobs were. But it was in the legal field. I
Okay.
was a legal secretary for a little over 20 years, and I had worked at several different law jobs. And this particular firm, there was just this one guy who was very toxic to everybody, and in particular, his secretary. And I remember one day, and I just stayed away from him because he actually terrified me, is what it was. I just didn't want to be anywhere near him. Anytime he talked, I just went into like hives. I was a nervous wreck around him. But one day I was talking to a secretary because I was training her on something. I was the trainer of, all the systems and everything. And I was training her, and he walked over, and he didn't see me because I was leaned down, and I was leaned down. I was looking up at her computer. And so he didn't see me, that I was behind the computer screen. And he came and he said, I don't remember what he said to her, but I remember that it was so extremely condescending. I stood up from behind that, because she told me he was coming. So I even ducked even deeper down, because I didn't want him to see me, And so I stood up and I said, don't you ever talk to her. That I was so mad, just livid that he had the guts to talk to her that way. And he looked at me and he said, don't you tell me how to treat my secretary like that. And he was the lawyer
ooh.
and she was the secretary. Yeah.
Oh my
And
God,
so
That's
I
so
just shut.
condescending.
Ew.
He was awful, awful. So I turned around and I walked away, and he goes, where are you going? He's yelling at me in the office. And, usually you don't have this kind of behavior in a law firm. So he's
Correct.
yelling at me, where are you going? I said, I'm going to go tell the manager what just happened. She's not even here. She's on vacation, he said. And I go, no, her replacement is here, and I'm going to go talk to her. So it was scary for me to do that, but I'm so glad I did. I stood up for her. And here was the thing that was really fascinating to me later, as I started talking to the secretary about it. She goes, I didn't even know he was condescending.
Oh.
And I think that sometimes in life, we're treated so poorly on a regular basis that we don't even know it's happening. And that was what I kind of got out of that whole story. I'll share with you what happened is my HR person ended up calling our corporate office, which was in a different state.
Mhm.
They flew out to San Diego in order to meet with him, and every single employee got all of our stories, and they literally got him squared away. They told him, get squared away in a month or you're out. And he had worked there for 16 years.
If
He
this
got
was an
squared away.
employment law facility, I feel like the irony twist here would be ridiculous.
It wasn't. Thank goodness
Okay, it
it
wasn't.
wasn't.
Okay.
I was like, I'm on board because the irony.
I would love that.
Exactly.
I would live for that irony. Yeah. Okay. But yeah, so
Yeah, well,
did he shape up or ship out? What happened to him?
he shaped up. And so it was just from calling him out. I didn't think he would. I really didn't think he would, but he did. He shaped up, and we ended up having conversations with each other, and he played saxophone, I played flute. And so during the Christmas, like our Christmas party, we all did some music, and he and I actually stood next to each other. So the whole environment, for me at least, shifted just because I stood up for somebody. I was
Mhm.
scared, but I did it,
Mm-hmm. So did he treat you like, do you think he had a resentment towards you, or if he did, he hit it well?
If he did, he hit it really well.
Yeah.
Yeah. He actually thanked me for calling him out.
So why do you think he was like that? Like, do you think there was something going on personally with him, or he was frustrated with something at the job? Like, usually it's a reason that you don't know, because it's not really personal, right? It's like usually
Right.
they're reacting to something, these toxic people are reacting to something within themselves or that's happening to them. So what do you think it was?
Well, I can only state that what I know is hearsay because it didn't come from him. And I don't know the facts about it. I was told, though, that he was on some kind of medication for personality, what do you call it, like multiple
Oh,
personality, and he hadn't been taking his medication. That's what I was told. I don't know if it's the truth or not, or if somebody was just spreading rumors, but I was like, oh, that makes a lot of sense. You know, it
I
kind of did
mean,
make
I
some
feel like
sense.
wherever there's smoke, there's fire. So maybe you didn't get the correct story, but you got like the gist of it. Like maybe he was on medication for whatever, depression, anxiety, stopped taking it. I mean, I'm much more irritable when I'm feeling anxious and depressed. So, I mean, yeah. I mean, well, I'm glad that if that was true, I'm glad he got back on the medication because sometimes people need medication to function properly in society. So,
Yeah.
and I'm one of
Yeah.
those people. Yeah.
So you know what it's all
So,
about. People are like, please get back on your medication.
yeah. I just become like non-functioning. I don't eat. I just like waste away in bed. It's a fun
Mm,
time.
wow.
Anywho,
Super fun time. Yeah.
okay.
Okay.
What is the next toxic workplace you have up your sleeve, Linda? What is it?
It was job number 18. No, I just kidding.
Do you
I don't know what
remember
job it
them
is.
all? Like they probably
No,
must blend
well,
together.
I do remember. I'm able to compartmentalize them, that
Mm-hmm.
each of them, but I don't know in the exact order that they. One year I had 8 W-2s, so I had 8 jobs in 1 year, and so that was like an easy year to kind of like take me over the double digits. But yeah, the
Was it just
next
like
one,
a shitty year for employment, or what year was it? Was it a recession? Was there any?
no, I just I easily got bored. I just had these very simple, mundane jobs when I was, kind of like at the beginning of my work life, a lot of,
Mhm.
just simple, mundane jobs. And I got easily bored, not realizing that I was actually a creative person. I didn't know this about myself because, I grew up in a very volatile, abusive, alcoholic household. My dad was a narcissist, a gaslighter, and
Mhm.
I learned those behaviors from him. So I became a little bit like him. It's like a little
Mhm.
bit of that kind of stuff. So we're talking about toxicity. Earlier, we were talking about, were you the toxicity in
Mhm.
the environment to have 49 jobs? And I probably was in some way. I did do a lot of things that now I look back and like, wow, I can't believe I was like that, because I'm nothing like that today. Like a
Mhm.
backstabber, talking behind people's backs, and the gossip. I was, one of those that was gossiping and doing all that stuff. So that is possible that all of that stuff just made me not want to be around where I was, because I left every job. I was only laid off one time. Other than that,
Okay.
every job was my choice to leave. I was never fired.
So
So,
okay.
yeah. So I don't know. Maybe I was,
Crazy.
maybe I wasn't. But I'm
I would say just by maybe taking a job that you knew you weren't totally into, that could lead to its own brand of toxicity, because it's like you'll get bored, you'll start
yeah,
gossiping, So it's like that, everyone has a part to play in every situation that they're in. So I ask everyone who comes on our podcast, like, what do you think your part was in that dynamic, So I think for you, it
yeah,
sounds like you were just knowingly taking jobs, probably because you needed to support yourself, that you weren't, like, you knew in the back of your mind you're only going to be there for like 2 months or something. You were like, I'll take it now and see if I can get something better somewhere else or something.
Like it's
Um,
for right now.
yeah, it's
yeah.
okay for right
But
now.
I always was, back in those days, we had something called a newspaper, where you'd actually like have this paper and it got
How
this
old do you
ink all
think
over
we
your
are?
hands.
How old do you think we are?
No, I'm speaking for the audience, I don't know, maybe there's a 10-year-old listening right now. Who knows?
Oh, Lord,
Do
help us.
we?
If a 10-year-old is listening, I'm fucking concerned.
Yeah, because like, what toxic workplace have they been in?
Oh my
I
God,
know,
it
not
could be a
yet. Like,
sweet
that would be
child that
really
is
bad.
like child labor. And he's like, I need to get out of my toxic workplace.
No, Nicola, that's highly illegal. It's like, if anything,
Yeah.
if anything,
How
it
do
would
we
be like,
know? How do we know?
it would be like your son or my daughter being like, Mom creates a toxic workplace in the house.
I'm confident my child would say that, considering I make him do so many chores.
I mean, single moms, we have a different plight, right? Okay. So what were we
That's for
talking
sure.
about? Yeah.
I don't remember.
Um,
Oh, but it was, the
oh,
toxicity,
newspapers
the
and
newspapers. Yes.
classifieds, right? That's where you're going. I got
Yes.
some of
So
my first jobs via the newspaper classified ads.
Please.
I
So
got a
did I.
lot of my jobs, a lot of my jobs with that. Well, what I did is every single week we got those classifieds, in the paper, and every single week I would go through them and look through the help wanted. So I was always searching for another job. Even when I got a job, I was still searching. And it wasn't that like this was my plan to keep getting new jobs,
Right.
but just I would see a job and I'm like, ooh, that sounds interesting.
Ooh,
So I would
shiny.
go apply. And I would get hired and I would go, and what's interesting about it for me though, is all the different jobs I've had is, each job has led to the next, really. And then the things I've learned, because I have had so many jobs, I've worked with so many different personalities, thousands and thousands of different personalities. And I was always the trainer. Like I was always the one training all the employees, like, doing the computer training because I was really good at that. And I probably learned a good, 80 to 100 different programs, just that were specific to different companies just by having all those jobs. And so I trained on all those programs. And so the amount of knowledge that I gained and the things that I learned, by having all those jobs was actually a blessing because all of that stuff led me to what I'm doing today, which is book publishing. And I use all of those skills that I've learned, how to communicate with people, how to train people, how to organize people, being a secretary. I had some of the companies our law firm was working for was like Microsoft, Qualcomm, like these huge, huge corporations. And I was organizing, teams of 30 lawyers. So all of that stuff that I learned, I've pulled it all into my business, which is really cool because it
Mhm.
makes me a much, much better business owner.
That makes
Yeah.
sense though. It makes sense because I think,
Yeah.
those are soft skills. Those are transferable soft skills, right? You've got those skills that you
Mhm.
have that you can do and everybody can do, like we can all do computers pretty much. But then there's those soft skills around training and developing people and, using those to be able to, transfer them over to the work that you're doing now, I think is a skill in itself.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's been amazing, I looked at
Okay.
49
So
jobs.
what, yeah. So what was your next most toxic workplace experience?
I remember this job, like I was only there for about 3 days
Oh boy.
because well, see, when I was interviewed, I was promised, it was right around Thanksgiving time here in the US. And I was promised that even though I was starting the week of Thanksgiving and things, so I started on Monday, Thanksgiving was Thursday and Friday. I was
Sure.
promised that I would get those days off with pay. But when I got my paycheck, which was the following Monday, they paid us, those days weren't in that pay. So I went to the manager. I said, hey, when you interviewed me, you said I would be getting paid for these days. And he goes, I never said that. And it
Oh,
was in writing, like I had it in writing. And he just bald-faced lied to me. And I'm like, I do not work with liars. So what I did that day is I worked the morning and then at lunchtime, and my friend got me the job, by the way, and I was working with her. And I just said, just so you know, I'm not coming back from lunch. Okay. And then I said
Mhm.
to the manager, I said, hey, I'll see you after lunch. And I just lied to him. Like I knew I wasn't coming back, but I just walked out of there and I went straight to an employment agency and got a job the next day. So, but
Remember
I,
those days like where jobs were aplenty and like
yeah,
I was
you could
just
go to
recently like trying to get consulting work like almost a year ago now, just to kind of during like the after COVID slump, like it hit my company really hard. So I
mhm.
wasn't making as much money as I once had. And it took me like 6 months to find a consulting gig. Like it was awful. And I interviewed with so many great companies and I don't know what happened. I guess the
I know, and then
competition
you
was
ended
pretty
up in
fierce,
our toxic company, please,
which
babe.
was terrible.
It was a
Terrible,
shit
terrible.
show.
I was like, I'd rather have less pay and not like I'd rather be just
Yeah,
scraping along right now than deal with whatever this is. But okay, you said you don't work with liars, but then you lied to the boss. What are
yeah.
your feelings on that now?
Yeah, at the time I didn't even realize what I was saying. So, it's again, I having grown up in that environment I grew up in, like I was a liar. I was
Mhm.
toxic myself, very toxic. I was very judgmental. I would call people names all the time, call them out, and I would go tattletale on people, and so I did all that stuff. And so sometimes, we don't see who we are, because we're too
Yeah.
busy looking at others. And that's what I was doing. I was looking at the other people, not looking at myself. I didn't really start to look at myself until I was age 51. So I
And
spent a
what year
lot of
was that?
years. That was a 2015.
Okay. So
Yeah,
it's pretty safe to say, Linda, and you can hate me for this. It sounds like you were the toxic one.
possibly. I was a toxic person for sure. I wouldn't
So,
say
and
the toxic
then,
one.
and it's like everywhere you go, there you are. So if you're
Hmm.
toxic, if you know you're toxic and you're going to work, I would say there's a 99.9% chance that you're being toxic without even meaning to. It's not like you were being
Yeah, yeah,
malicious. That's just the headspace you were in. I mean,
Yeah.
I get it.
yeah,
I get that too. Like, you're not feeling your best self, and you're not feeling that there's these traits that you've brought from like a generational trauma, and now you're bringing those with you into the workplaces that you're going into.
yeah. Yeah, I didn't even
Yeah.
know I was doing it, right? Because I never looked inward. I always
So
looked
what made
outward.
you look
And
inward?
well, when I was driving to my 49th job, working for a judge in the Court of Appeals, I had worked my way up the ladder in the legal field, to work for the number 2 judge in the entire circuit here. And
Okay.
as I was driving to work that job, I was probably about there for about 8 months or so. But I realized how bored I was again. Like it happened. I got myself into this job where I was just like, I can do it with my hands, behind my back. I mean, it was so easy. And
Mm-hmm.
that job, I wouldn't say it was like toxic, but it was toxic for me. The
Mm-hmm.
environment of you're not allowed to talk to I was not allowed to talk to anybody unless it was specifically only related to a case. That was the judge's rules. Like, and so you had to follow the judge's rules. And so for me, that was like putting me in a cage because I'm a very social person. I love to talk to people. So I was driving to work one day and I was just like, I don't like, I hate this job. I don't understand, like, why am I doing this? Why am I doing this to myself? And just asking, like, what's my purpose? Why am I here? I'm so worthless. I have no value. There is no reason for me to be here. All I do is push papers around for a judge. That's all I do. And I was like, as a matter of fact, why is this whole planet here? I don't understand. Like, I was just really angry about life. Like, why is this whole stuff here? Why are we even doing this? And when I got to work that day, there was a Facebook post from a woman who said, I'm a life coach. I took some time off. I'm getting it back into it. I'm looking for 5 women who want to change their lives. And I saw that and I was like, I want to change my life. I didn't know what a
Mm-hmm.
life coach was, but I want to change my life. And so I ended up reaching out to her and I ended up hiring her. And that was the start. That was the first time in my life that I ever really looked at myself by having help, having somebody help me. I never asked for help prior to that.
Mm-hmm.
So that was really the door opener to everything that I'm doing right now is as a result of me working with her.
Wow.
Okay, so what did she offer you? Like, what kind of tools did she offer you to look inwards and then, like, course change or come correct in terms of your toxic thoughts and potential behaviors?
So many, but the ones that really stand out the most were, I didn't really know who I was. I was a people pleaser.
Mm.
I ran
Maybe
away
it's
when
not
I was
narcissism.
5 years old.
Yeah.
I ran away when I was 5 years old and I was gone for a week because I was running away from that toxic home. Right. And then when I came back, I became riddled with fears and I became a people pleaser. And I lived my life that way as a people pleaser. And so when I started working with my life coach, one of the tools that she gave me was to look at myself and discover what is it that I absolutely love doing? What is it
Mhm.
that I absolutely hate doing? And what is it that I like doing? Because I spent my life, if you loved it, I loved it. If you hated it, I hated it. I just
Very
followed the crowd.
codependent.
It was
Yeah.
like
Oh,
narcissistic
extremely.
trauma. So once you've had like a narcissistic parent, as you said, you have one of those traumas is a hyper independence. You don't ask help from anyone, which you've already stated. The other one is that you're so cautious about what they like and what they need. You then transfer that into all your relationships going forward as well. Those narcissistic parents, man, they fuck you up.
Going back to Linda, you get these tools from your life coach. You start to figure out what you like, what you don't like, and what you love. And where does that lead you?
Yeah, what that led me to was to actually really to dive deep down inside and ask myself, am I doing this because they want me to? Or am I doing this because I want to? Am I saying yes because I want them to like me? Or am I saying yes because I actually want to do it? Do I really want to say no here, but I'm saying yes? So it really started me really
that's
more
big.
Just asking questions. That's all. That's really what it did is started me asking different questions, which I never did
About
before.
yourself, like to yourself.
Mhm.
Yeah. When I learned that no is a complete sentence, it changed my life. Like I don't have to explain why I'm not coming. I can't make it. The answer is no. Like that's it. You don't owe anyone an explanation. And I was codependent for a period of my life because I had this sister who, whatever her mood was, I had to balance it out. Like if she was acting up, I had to be like the peacekeeper or whatever. So I get that, but I don't think I people please at all now. I think I've swung completely to the opposite direction.
Yeah.
Which is probably a trauma response, but I'd much rather be the opposite direction than be codependent, because the amount of emotional like upheaval on like a 5-minute circle, like like it just happens. It leaves you exhausted and you're just like, you don't know what's going on. So you're just saying yes to everything or whatever. Like I deeply identify with that. So did you start saying no to a lot of things?
I started saying no to a lot of things, but also saying, you know what, I'm going to think about that first instead of being reactionary. And because I used to be very reactionary and just say yes. And then what would happen is in the meantime, I'm back here like overloading myself and I'm just so stressed out. And then I can't fulfill, for anybody. And then I'm stressed because I can't please everyone. So it was like it's just a spiral
It's a
downward.
never ending circle. It's very cyclical. You're just like in it and it's hard to get off. It's like a merry-go-round. So what else?
Not merry at all. It's just a go round.
It's not. It's like a horror go round.
Well, let me share with you one of the techniques that I learned, which I thought was awesome. It wasn't from my life coach, someone else though, because I have a lot of mentors and coaches in my life now, because I do ask for help a lot now. And one of the techniques I learned was that when somebody asks you to do something, instead is say, you know what, that doesn't really fit for me right now, but I will let you know if I run across somebody that can help you, or I will look for you to see if like maybe I have somebody in my toolkit that can help you, but I don't always have to be the one that does it. Maybe sometimes I'm just a conduit to direct them, right? The collaborator.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's valid because it's like, just like you're trying to create boundaries, those people, they'll mirror you. Like water seeks its own level. If you're creating a boundary, hopefully they will mirror that back. I mean, I think you get into the whole toxic boss thing when they don't understand boundaries or they don't have them. But once you start having hard lines and boundaries, usually it course corrects others around you who are not, suffering from some kind of deluded mentality or whatever, thinking that they're the best at whatever they do, So do you find that happened?
Yeah, definitely. Setting my own boundaries. It's been interesting because my daughter, who she's almost 40, like I'm going to be 60 in a couple of weeks. She's almost 40. And we had this like headbutting relationship for almost all of our years until about 3 or 4 years ago. And it's after I started my personal development, she was seeing me do this, make these shifts and stuff. At the beginning, she didn't like it, because I was becoming,
because it's new.
Yeah. And I wasn't as, I didn't say yes all the time. people who you say yes to all the time don't like it when you say no.
Of course.
They have to become kind of accustomed to it. But recently though, I saw her doing a Facebook Live, and it was really cool because she was using some of the language that I've learned, on this journey of like, going inward and all these kinds of things. And I'm like, oh, my little girl, she's growing up. It's so awesome. And like, I'm not helping her because if I do, she'll run the other way,
Mhm.
So I'm
Yeah.
emulating something, and she's catching some of it, which is
It's
just
like
really awesome.
it's like promotion by attraction. Like she
I love
sees the
that.
change in you, so then she's going probably not even realizing it. It's rubbing off on her, right? So I
Yeah.
mean, my relationship changed significantly with my own mom after my dad passed away because it was a very traditional marriage, and he kind of his say was final. And now that she has more autonomy, she's willing to, like, I'm a single mom, she helps me with certain things, like monetarily, especially during COVID when my company was hit really hard. She's helped me, and our relationship has changed because my mom never had the chance to help me in the past. Like, they one time told me go to Catholic charity. My dad told me go to the charities if you need financial help. And I was like, thanks, Dad. Meanwhile,
Wow.
yeah, it was like, meanwhile, it's like you bring us into this world. We didn't ask to be brought here. And then you're just like hanging us out to dry. Like, thanks. So, but yeah, so I think, the change within us attracts people.
Yeah.
It's like I see the change in my mom. I'm much more willing to have open and honest conversations with her. And it sounds like similar to your daughter.
Yeah. You just reminded me of something. When I know we're allowed to cuss here because you did, Nicola, earlier. So
Oh, yeah,
we
no,
cussed.
you're like, I did? Oh.
Oh,
I told Nicola on the podcast not that long ago to go fuck herself. So yeah, you could curse. I was like, Nicola, you're wrong. Go fuck yourself.
and I was like,
So
okay.
funny.
She was like, okay, gotcha, fine. Yeah.
I'm out.
No,
Well,
she was
when
like,
my
you're right. She went along with it. Anyway, so yes, please curse.
it was when my when my dad was on his deathbed, he had 86 heart attacks from his pacemaker. His pacemaker kicked in every single time, 86 times. So my dad and my mom walked into the hospital on Thursday, and then Friday morning my dad passed away after 86 heart attacks. Well, when the family showed up, us kids, the siblings all showed up, I was like, 86 heart attacks? Like, Mom, you got to tell them to just like disconnect his pacemaker. Tell them to. She was so controlled by my dad that she couldn't even make that decision, because every decision she made in their 55 years was the wrong decision.
Oh,
And so
bless
she
her
couldn't make
heart.
that decision. And so I was the one. I went and I told the doctor, I said, go ahead and turn off his pacemaker. He took that last breath, and I'm standing right next to my mom. And she says, thank God the bastard is dead. Those were her first words when
Mom.
my dad took his last breath.
She
55
probably
years of
felt
living in a
such,
hell.
yeah, like such incredible freedom.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
he was on a pacemaker like that.
Yeah. For about a year and a half, the last year and a half of his life, he was on a pacemaker. Yeah. But
Okay.
86 heart attacks. Can you imagine? Like, oh my gosh, how much longer were we going to let him go? I mean, even though, I didn't like my dad and he was a bastard, I just, I didn't want that.
Fun
I
fact
don't want
about
that for anybody.
pacemakers and heart attacks is they actually decrease your short-term memory. So you have zero short-term memory when you have a pacemaker and a heart attack.
Oh, really?
Was he like losing it, or was it just the heart? He was not
Just the
losing it
heart?
mentally.
Well, he didn't really have a heart to begin with, but
No, like
but he-
anatomically, it was just his heart.
Yeah,
But
it was just his
No,
heart.
it was
Yeah.
just a lump of coal with a pacemaker
Yes.
attached to it.
Oh my gosh.
So did your relationship with your mom change after your dad passed away?
It did a little bit, but not a whole lot, because I started, and that was before I went through this personal development stuff. And that
Sure.
I was like, wow, how could you put up with that for so long? I didn't know, like, I knew she didn't like him, but I didn't know she felt that strongly to him, because my mom never said anything bad about people. She just held it all in, And so I just started looking at it, I was like, why did you stay with him that long? You were so weak, you know, and I really blamed my mom so much for staying with him, because many times she would pack up us kids to run away, but then we would go right back home.
Of course.
I remember when I was like 8 years old, and we had all of us packed in the panel station wagon.
Oh
We
yeah,
go to the
we had
bank,
one of those too.
go to
Where
the
you
go to
sit
the
in
bank, and
back
pull out all the
seat
money.
with no seatbelts.
Yeah.
What do you call the back of the way back seat, right? The way back. And we went to the bank to take out all the money. And when my mom came out of the bank, my dad was there, and she hopped in the car and we drove back home, you know? So there were so many of those types of things that happened that I had so much resentment for her while she was still alive. She only lived another 3 years after he passed away.
Okay.
She got cancer. She got cancer, like right as he was nearing the end of his life, she got cancer.
I mean,
And
living with all of that toxicity, I think it
he was
can end up,
cancer.
it can
Yeah.
it can become physical. I mean, we're not psychologists or doctors, but I had like what we've been talking to other people who have had burnout from toxic workplaces, and it does become physical. It's like you can't concentrate, you can't do anything in a normal period of time because you're like your mind is just going. So I mean, I get it.
Yeah.
Um
Yeah.
so what other things did you do in your that year that you kind of looked inwards and figured out who you were and what you wanted?
Yeah, that after working with my life coach, I worked with her for 5 months. And then
Mhm.
after that, I had gotten addicted to something different, and that was called positivity. You know, I had
Okay.
never been around positive, motivational, inspirational people before, but I got addicted to it because she really helped me to see who I am and see that there was so much more for me out there, that I do have a purpose. There is a reason for me to be here, and there's something more for me to go and find out what that is. So in 2015, on January 1st, I woke up that morning and I was like, wow, I just love what I've done with her, but I want to keep going. I want to keep going and growing. And so I decided to break through one fear every single day that year. And that was like, I can't even explain the transformation that happened for me and for me that year, because it's so astronomical. You can't even imagine how
So
your life would change when you
can
do
you
that.
walk us through maybe one or two fears that you walked through that changed you for the better? I'm sure they
Yeah,
all did,
well,
because once you like you feel the fear but do it anyway, it is a very like watershed moment almost, you know, or like have
yeah,
those
yeah.
realizations as a result of walking through the fear. So can
That
you
quote,
tell us a
feel
few?
the fear and go for it, was my mantra from probably 16 to 25, before it was even popularized, right?
Wow,
Yeah.
Like
that's
it
I
wasn't
awesome.
even
mean,
a thing.
so I heard this thing recently that fear is courage walking, and that stuck with me because it was like
That's good.
that's that is what it is. Like
Yeah.
you feel the fear, but you do it anyway. And you know, all growth comes on the other side of pain or discomfort, right? Like most of my personal growth has been a result of emotional pain. Like I'm in so much emotional pain, I don't know what to do, and the only thing I can change is myself. I can't change the carpet of the world, but I can put on different slippers. So I
That's a
mean,
good
That
one.
needs to be a t-shirt.
yeah. So it's like if the carpet's like that scratchy, like rattan carpet that some people have, and like I'm wearing
Right.
like bare feet, let me just put on
Ew.
some nice, like, you know, sheepskin slippers. I'm gonna feel so much better about everything. So tell us what some of those fears that you walked through were.
Yeah, definitely. Well, first of all, I created a different saying, and that's to do it because you're scared, not in spite of the fear. Because to me, that's more of like an empowerment move. Because 99% of the fears that I broke through, the results that I got were either way better than I ever imagined. A door was open that I didn't even know was closed. I ended up meeting some absolutely incredible people because I walked through that
Awesome.
door of fear. And so I say, oh, that's just fear. I have to do this because I'm scared, because I don't know what's going to be on the other side. And then also like that proverbial comfort zone thing, it doesn't mean it's comfortable. It's just a place of comfort. Like we're used to it. Like my mom was with my dad 55 years of, that was a comfort zone for her. She didn't know how to stretch out of it. And so one thing I realized is by breaking through so many fears that my comfort zone just kept enlarging,
Mhm.
enlarging. So those things that I used to be scared to do, I'm no longer scared to do. They've actually become part of my comfort zone. So what I did is every morning when I woke up for 365 days in a row, the first thing I would do before I got out of bed is just ask myself a question. What scares me? And then I would lay in bed and I would wait until the very first fear popped into my head. And my commitment to myself, it was a commitment, was to break through that fear that day. Now, I didn't know what the fears were going to be. There was no plan of action except to ask a question and see what came up. And so some days it was something like, go talk to a stranger in a Starbucks, go to the movie theater by yourself, go grocery shopping by yourself, go to a restaurant and say, like, how many in your party? One. Those were all big deals for me.
Those are
Going to
so many good things that I love to do because I'm such an introvert. Like, I
So the
Love
love
those
it. Like,
things.
going out to eat alone, we talked about this with Joanna, the expert on introverts and extroverts, is like my dream. It's like I feel like I've made it. Like, take myself to a nice restaurant and just
Oh.
like sit there and people watch.
What a treat.
Chef's kiss.
Best
see now,
moment.
okay, see, part of what you just said was the reason I had the fear of it. You said, and people watch. See, my fear was that if I go there by myself, that people are going to look at me and say, oh, poor thing, she's all by herself. She has nobody.
Guess what?
You know
Nobody
why?
cares that much about us.
Well, but not only that, this is what I started looking at, is that I was thinking that of people who were by themselves. So I was thinking people were thinking that about me. Right. So really like pointing the finger back at myself. And so what I came to the conclusion, about 6 months into breaking through these different fears that you guys love, but they were terrifying for me.
Yeah, I mean,
is
I
that,
had to work up to that place. It wasn't like I was born saying like,
okay.
yeah, like, because I
Okay.
used to have that thing too, like where I'd be like, people will think I'm a loser. But the older I
Yeah.
got, I was like, first of all, I realized I'm not that important. I'm the most important person in my narrative, but I'm not in anyone else's, maybe my daughter's,
Right.
but that's it. So I had to realize that, I had this thing where I was like an egotistical like piece of shit. So I was the biggest piece of shit in the room. I'm bigger than everybody else, but I hated myself. So once I kind of like turned that narrative and I was just like, no, nobody cares about me. Like, it was really freeing because it's not that nobody cares. It's just that I'm not the center of everyone's narrative or everyone's universe. And that's okay.
Right.
Why would I want to be?
For sure.
Like, I don't want to be. So I
Right,
had to work up
exactly.
there to that point.
Yeah.
But yeah, once I got there, I was like, this is like, once I started traveling on my own for work before I had my own company and I was forced to, it was that I had no choice. I had to do it anyway. So I had to walk through the fear. And then I realized I fucking love traveling alone. I love being alone. I love, like, this is my jam. But like you, I had to be forced to do it. Left to my own devices, I don't know if I'd ever know that about myself,
Yeah. Well, I love it now. Now
Yeah.
I actually enjoy more going by myself because that people pleaser person, right? I
Mhm.
needed to please them. If I went somewhere with somebody else, I always had to do what they wanted to do. And I never got to do what I wanted to do. So it's completely shifted for me. It took later in life for me to get to that point, 51 years old. But one of the greatest discoveries that I made during that time is that the fear of judgment was my greatest fear. And because that was my greatest fear, now I could work on that, like that one thing. And if that was my greatest fear and I could kind of like extinguish that or at least minimize it to a great degree, then my life would shift. And that's exactly what has happened. I mean, it's been absolutely amazing. Some of the things that have happened to me because I no longer have that fear of judgment. It's been just absolutely incredible.
So do you think that was, if once you realized that was your biggest fear, you realized why you had been so judgmental? You were probably striking first, right?
Yep.
Let me judge
Every
them
time.
before they judge me. But most people have so many other things going on in their personal life. Again, you're not that important, right? But because you're doing that, you think everybody else is. So it's like such a mind fuck in so many ways. Like,
Yeah.
I identify with like being super judgmental because I was scared. I was scared that people were looking at me and saying she's ugly, she's this, whatever, because I grew up with that narrative from the narcissistic
Yep.
sister telling me how ugly and fat and stupid I was, and I couldn't be further from all of those things, but I had internalized it, so I get it,
Yeah.
you know?
And
Yeah.
that's exactly what it was. Especially my ex-husband on a daily basis just pounded into my head how stupid and ignorant I am, and so I really thought I was stupid and ignorant. And so I wouldn't even talk in front of most people, because what if I said something stupid and then they caught on to me that I really was ignorant? I didn't know anything about anything, right? So I walked around again with that belief of myself.
Mhm.
And I remember there was this one event I attended, and I walked in the door, and I saw this woman standing on the other side of the room, and she was just immaculate. She was perfectly dressed. Her
Mhm.
hair was perfect. Everything was just so perfect about her. And I saw her over there, and I looked at her, and I had an immediate sense of judgment, but then I caught myself. And I said, let's look for all the amazing things about her. So when I first saw her, I was like, who does she think she is, like that? That was my
Yeah.
initial reaction. But then I've moved out of, I shouldn't say I've moved out of, but I'm continually working on moving out of reaction and into response. So having responses rather than reaction, because response requires thought. And so I looked at it, and then I ended up just walking right over into her and saying, I just got to tell you that you are absolutely beautiful. Like you're stunning. I saw you the second I walked in the room, and I just wanted to tell you. And she was like, oh, thank you so much. She was very shy. And so who knows
She
what's going on in
probably
her
felt
world.
like the ugliest, fattest, just most shabbily dressed person
Disgusting.
there.
Yeah. She was
Yeah.
probably
Yeah.
feeling like shit herself.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
like, how great is that so another little trick I learned, because I'm not really as outgoing as I might seem on this podcast. So, was to, yeah. So, no, I'm not. I want to be left alone all the time and not bothered by anyone. But, so I learned people love to talk about themselves. So if you're ever in like a weird social situation and you
Ask
don't know what to
questions.
say, just ask them like, how was your day? What do you do for work? And you don't even have to listen to what they say. It's just,
What was
know,
the most
start
interesting
going.
about your day? What do you like about your life? Like all of these things that make people feel like they're being listened to. Hold on, I just have to pee.
Okay. And also like complimenting people is a great way,
Yeah,
because they'll,
definitely.
yeah. So what happened? Did you end up talking to this immaculately dressed woman?
That was it. I just walked over her to say that, it's kind of like a fear of mine. And so I just, I break through fears on a regular basis, because like I said, do them because you're scared. I don't remember her name or anything. I just remember that situation because it was so prominent to me that I had that shift in that moment. That's what the big deal was for me, is that I judged, and then I said, wait a minute, let's look for the good things. And that was exactly what happened in that moment for me.
And isn't
And
it
that was the
funny
beauty
that
of it.
all of the judgmental things were really just a reflection of the good things that you were most like because you
Yep.
grew up the way you did, it was probably just like you feeling a deficit in yourself or just jealousy, right? So it's like once you turned the narrative, you were able to make it a positive experience for not only yourself, but for this woman who is probably feeling shitty standing in the corner by herself because nobody's approaching her because
Yeah,
she's impeccably dressed. I would love someone to
exactly.
describe me as like that. Do you think anyone would ever describe me like that, Nicola?
I would describe you
I
like that,
will.
babes.
Standing in the
I
corner,
will right now.
immaculately dressed.
Oh, please.
I do
I
have-
saw you in Las Vegas, babe, trying on your stupid gumboots or whatever the fuck those shoes were. I was there for that. And you were immaculately dressed. I was in sweats and a jumper, please.
I was not
There you go.
immaculately dressed. But the night
You
before,
were more immaculately dressed than I was in my sweats and jumper.
probably, that's true. But you don't always dress like that. Where does this leave you now, Linda? So you've had this like radical transformation by feeling the fear or walking through the fear. So where are you now?
Oh, well, first of all, I am doing a lot of things that were never, ever in my mind, anything that I would ever be doing. For example, I had an amazing opportunity to interview the president of Mexico, the country Mexico.
We're good.
Yeah.
Okay.
Interviewing stars on the red carpet, and
Ooh.
it's yeah, those things, like those are the kind of the fun things that I've been doing. But I spent my whole life saying I'm not a reader, I'm not a writer, I'm not a reader, I'm not a writer, because I had that fear of judgment. Right. And so I now am a 22-time #1 international best-selling author, and I have a
Ooh.
publishing company. These are things that I never even
Wait, what kind
imagined.
of books do you write?
Yeah, like
Um,
wait, what?
Hold on. Why
Well-
are we just finding this out at the end? What kind of books are you writing?
Well,
Do you
we were
have a
talking about
nom de
toxic
plume?
work. We were talking about toxic workplaces, and mine is not toxic because
No.
But now we're
Yeah,
curious.
so-
Curious, inquiring minds must know.
well,
Yes.
I mostly do collaboration books, where we bring people together to share their stories. Each person writes one story. And my whole mission, like my mission in life since I've become a reformed person, is to empower people to share their stories with the world, to make a greater impact on the planet. And so I have this mission of empowering 5 million
Oh.
women and men to write their stories. We're only at number 248, but you know what? You got to start with one step. And so that's where we are. And it's been just absolutely incredible being able to read their stories and share them, reading their transformation, because our books are all about inspiration, motivation, and moving from here to there. Like how did you get from here to there? And we want those stories because this planet, man, we've got so much messed up stuff going on that I want to do what I can to get that positivity out there into the world. Remember, I said I was addicted to positivity. I'm still addicted to being around positive people. I don't want to spend any time around that negative stuff that I spent decades around,
I really appreciate you coming on and sharing. Do you have any additional information you want to give us? Like, how can people find you? What platforms are you on? Any last minute
Yeah,
things
thank
you
you.
want to share?
Well, thanks so much for having me. And it's been great reminiscing about those toxic environments, and it started in the household, right? That toxicity, like you mentioned. And, I carried that around myself and not realizing at the time that I was part of the problem, of course. But yeah, you can find me at actiontakerspublishing.com, actiontakerspublishing.com. And my name, Linda Sunshine West, Lynda Sunshine West. That's how I'm on all the socials. Facebook, LinkedIn, Instagram, Clubhouse, and all those places. And I just love connecting with people. So if anybody if you're looking at writing a book, or you just want to talk about some of the fears that you're experiencing and want me to help you through those too, you can reach out to me.
That's awesome.
And I'd love to help.
Yeah, I
Well,
love that.
We really appreciate the time that you've taken to have a chat with us. I think it's been really awesome. And, we wish you the best going forward with your fear domination.
Yeah.
That's good. That's good.
Yeah.
Thank you
fear
so
domination.
much.
I like
Appreciate
it,
you.
Nicola.
That's
All
a good
right.
one. You're going to trademark that. Fear dominator.
TM. We just did. Fear domination
There you go.
TM.
There we go.
Okay. Well, thank you so much. I identified so much with your story, Linda.
Yeah.
Sounds good. I can't wait to get it out there. And thank you so much. It's been interesting because I don't usually talk about those toxic things. So it has been interesting for me, and just like, bringing up that stuff,
Love
Thank you.
Have a cup
Appreciate
of
it.
tea and just remember that your
Chamomile
fear,
tea, right?
yeah, and that you're a fear dominator. You dominate
That's right.
fear.
Dominate fear. TM.
That's right.
TM.
TM.
Okay. Thanks so much, Linda. We'll talk to you soon.
Thank you. Have a great one. Thank you.
You too.
Bye.
Thank you so much for joining us on this episode of Let's Break Up, Toxic Workplace Stories. If you enjoyed our candid conversations and insights, don't forget to hit that like button, follow us on social media, and subscribe to our podcast on your favorite platform.